The night Babylon fell, there was a party happening inside its walls. King Belshazzar had invited 1,000 of his nobles to a banquet. The tables were full. The wine was flowing. The torches were burning bright against the walls of the greatest palace in the greatest city on earth. 1,000 voices laughing, drinking, celebrating, because what else was there to do when you were the most powerful people in the most powerful empire the world had ever seen? Nobody was afraid that night. Nobody thought they needed to be. Belshazzar was in a good mood. The kind of mood that comes when wine has been flowing for a while and the whole room is celebrating and a man starts to feel like the whole world belongs to him. And somewhere in the middle of that feeling, somewhere between one cup and the next, a thought came to him. He wanted the cups from the temple. Not the ordinary cups already on the table. He wanted the gold and silver vessels his grandfather Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple of God in Jerusalem years ago. Holy vessels. Vessels set apart for the worship of the God of Israel. They had been sitting in the royal treasury untouched for decades because even Nebuchadnezzar, for all his greatness and all his pride, had never dared to bring them out for personal use. But Belshazzar was not thinking about that tonight. He was thinking about how good the wine tasted and how loud the room was and how untouchable he felt. "Bring me those cups," he said. And they brought them. Those ancient holy vessels moving through the banquet hall, gold catching the torchlight, silver gleaming, carried by servants into a room full of nobles who filled them immediately with wine and lifted them and drank. Belshazzar drank. His wives drank. His concubines drank. His 1,000 nobles drank. And as they drank from the cups of the God of Israel they sang the praises of their gods. Gods of gold and silver and bronze and iron and wood and stone. Gods made by human hands. Gods that could not see or hear or speak or feel. The holy vessels of the living God, filled with wine and raised to toast dead idols. Nobody in that room felt a thing. At first. Then the hand appeared. No warning. No sound. No dramatic sign from heaven before it came. Just a hand. The fingers of a human hand appearing from nowhere, moving across the plaster of the wall directly opposite the lampstand, right where the light was brightest, right where every eye in the room could see it, writing. Pressing words into the plaster of the wall in slow and deliberate strokes. And then stopping. And then gone. The room went silent. Not gradually. All at once. As if someone had reached into that hall of 1,000 celebrating people and pulled the sound out of the air with one hand. Every face turned to the wall. And there, written in the lamplight, were 4 words that nobody could read. The Bible does not linger on the crowd in that moment. It goes straight to the king. Belshazzar's face went pale. His thoughts terrified him. His hip joints gave way beneath him. And his knees knocked together. This man, this king who had been laughing and drinking and feeling untouchable not 5 minutes ago, was now standing at the head of his own banquet table with his face the color of ash and his legs barely holding him upright, staring at 4 words on his own wall that he could not read. He screamed for his wise men. His enchanters. His astrologers. Every expert in hidden things that Babylon could produce. He promised them purple robes and gold chains and the 3rd highest position in the kingdom. Just read it. Just tell me what it means. They came. They stood before the wall. They stared at the writing burning in the lamplight. And not one of them, not a single one of the greatest minds in the greatest empire on earth, could read it. Not one of them could say a word about what it meant. The king's terror deepened. His face grew more pale. And his 1,000 nobles stood around him in stunned and helpless silence. Then the queen mother walked in. She had heard the noise from somewhere deeper in the palace. She had heard the panic. And she walked into that banquet hall with a steadiness that nobody else in the room possessed. She looked at the trembling king and she spoke calmly. "There is a man in your kingdom," she said. "A man you have forgotten. A man your grandfather Nebuchadnezzar relied on above all others. He has the spirit of the holy God in him. His name is Daniel. In your grandfather's time he interpreted dreams that no one else could touch and solved problems that defeated every other wise man in Babylon. He is still here. He is still in this kingdom. Go and get Daniel. He will tell you what the writing means. So they went and got Daniel. And the man who walked into that banquet hall was not what Belshazzar was expecting. Daniel was old. He had come to Babylon as a teenager, pulled from Jerusalem, planted in a foreign empire, handed a foreign name and told to serve foreign kings. He had served Nebuchadnezzar through decades of dreams and visions and impossible tests. He had watched kings rise and fall and rise again. He had spent his entire life inside the most powerful city on earth and never once, through any of it, stopped being faithful to the God of Israel. He was old now. And somewhere in the years between Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar he had been forgotten. Set aside. No longer consulted. No longer called upon. Until tonight. Until 4 words on a wall that nobody could read sent a trembling king reaching for the one man in his kingdom who might have an answer. Belshazzar looked at this old man and made his offer. Purple robes. A gold chain. 3rd highest ruler in the kingdom. Just tell me what this means. Daniel looked at the king and said, keep your gifts. Give your rewards to someone else. I will read the writing and I will tell you what it means. But I do not want what you are offering. And then he spoke. And before he touched the meaning of a single word on that wall he told Belshazzar something. Not a riddle. Not a mystery. A story the king already knew. He told him about Nebuchadnezzar. He told him how God had given his grandfather a kingdom that shook the whole world. How every nation trembled before him. How he held the power of life and death over everyone in his reach. How God himself had lifted him to the very top of human power. And then he told him what happened when Nebuchadnezzar forgot where that power came from. When his heart became proud, God removed him from his throne. Drove him from his palace. Took the mind of a king and replaced it with the mind of an animal. Nebuchadnezzar, the man before whom the whole world had bowed, lived in the open fields and ate grass like cattle. His hair grew wild like feathers. His nails grew long like the claws of a bird. And he stayed that way until he lifted his eyes toward heaven and finally acknowledged that the Most High God rules over all kingdoms and gives them to whoever he chooses. That happened in your own family, Daniel said. You know this story. You heard it or you saw it with your own eyes. And then he looked at Belshazzar and said the thing that must have cut through that silent banquet hall like a blade. You knew all of this. And you still did not humble yourself. Instead you brought out the cups from God's temple and filled them with wine. You and your nobles and your wives and your concubines drank from them tonight. And while you drank you praised gods of silver and gold and bronze and iron and wood and stone, gods that cannot see, cannot hear, cannot understand a single thing about the world they were made in. But the God who holds your life in his hands, every breath of it, every moment of it, this very night of it, that God you chose not to honor. And so he sent the hand. He sent the hand that wrote on your wall. And now Daniel, read it. Slowly. One word at a time. Mean. God has numbered the days of your reign. And brought it to an end. Mean. It is counted out completely. There is not one day left. Tekel. You have been weighed on the scales. And found wanting. Parsin. Your kingdom is divided. And it is being given tonight to the Medes and Persians. Belshazzar sat with those words hanging in the air of his own banquet hall. He gave the command anyway. Daniel was dressed in purple. The gold chain was placed around his neck. He was proclaimed 3rd highest ruler in the kingdom. As if the robe changed anything. As if the chain meant anything now. As if honoring the man who read the verdict could make the verdict disappear. That very night Belshazzar, king of Babylon, was killed. Not the next morning. Not a week later. That very night. And Darius the Mede walked into the kingdom and received it. The torches were still burning. The cups were still on the tables. The wine was still in the air. The writing was still on the wall. And the king was dead, and the empire had changed hands before the sun came up. Everything Babylon was. Everything it had built across generations. All that power and all that wealth and all those armies and all those walls. Gone. In one night. While the party was still happening. Mene Mene Tekel Parsin. Numbered. Weighed. Divided. The hand was gone. The words remained. The kingdom was over. And the God whose holy vessels they had filled with wine to toast gods of wood and stone, was still standing. As he was before Babylon rose. As he was the night Babylon fell. As he will always be.